Tara, intro, take one.
Remember when we would clap because we thought that that's what we needed to do? And Grant was like, you guys are morons.
He's like, please stop clapping, you fucking Tweedledee and Tweedle dumbass.
That's what happens. That's what happens.
Hi.
What an episode.
I
What an
know.
episode. This is we
Two
were
of
just
our
talking.
favorite-
What?
Yep. No, just please finish your thought.
Thank you. We offline were just talking about how excited we are to introduce today's guest because their energy just really vibed with us in a way that was so special, and they were so interesting and smart and insightful and just, oh God, I'm sorry. We bring you the fucking goodness today on Thoughts May Vary. Let me just tell
we
you.
really do. We really do the Lord's
We
work
just
because
deliver.
two of the best, juiciest, most stigmatized topics. Like, what else is there to talk about besides sex and mental health? Well, I mean, let's just dinner party conversations, honey.
Okay, can I tell them who we had on today?
Please.
Today, we had on the one and only Dr. Tara Luvbites. With social media influence of over 50 million engagements, Dr. Tara is one of the most influential sex and relationship experts online. Her life's goal is to normalize sex talks and help people live a more passionate life and feel more sexually fulfilled through confidence and communication coaching. She is the expert in her field of sexual communication. Her textbook, Sexual Communication, Research and Action, can be found in our show notes below. But that's not all. Dr. Tara is also a tenured professor of relational and sexual communication at California State University Fullerton. She received her tenure at the age of 33. Just by the way. She's an award-winning researcher, a sex and relationship coach, and is the host of Luvbites by Dr. Tara, a podcast that focuses on sexual wellness and sexploration. She also has a column with Women's Health magazine where you can send in your own questions. So if communicating with her on all of her social media platforms was not enough for you and on her podcast, now you have another place where you can get the best sex information ever.
Obviously, this is not only our two favorite things to talk about, but clearly it's y'all's as well because we've got inundated with gorgeous, beautiful questions that Dr. Tara so thoughtfully answered that we did not get to all of them. So we will do this again.
We say that about all of our guests. We're like, and they're coming back.
We really do. But we're getting better at bringing people back again because there's always more to unpack. But we did cover a lot. So we talked a lot about finding sexual confidence, especially within relationships and growing together sexually within relationships. We talked about how secure attachment styles make sex kinkier. Unpack that, baby. We also got into balancing sex being intimate and connective, but also hot and fun. We talked about kinks, how to discover your kinks, especially if you don't have a partner or aren't sexually active right now. We talked about how to give instruction and direction and communication skills. We talked about getting over a fear of sex. If you've had bad experiences, sex after trauma, or just haven't had sex in a while. We talked a lot about libido and the difference between
libido versus desire.
That's right, baby. We learned a lot. No. We learned a lot. We talked about unpacking sex shame from our parents and cultures and how to rewrite our own morals and values and things we believe in and take the good and leave the rest.
What I loved so much about this conversation, as I do with any conversation, is that nuance was injected into the chat. Nuance existed, nuance was there. We bring her up many a time throughout the conversation, which I think is so valuable when you're talking about something that shifts so much like sex and relationships.
Nuance is our favorite it girl, like truly.
Tattooed on my forehead.
Round here.
Yeah.
If it smells funny, onions getting peeled. I can't do this at night because it's a rap lyric. I can't do this at night, dude. I'm unhinged.
Meadow, we gotta
Round
go.
here, if it smells funny,
all right,
onions
stop.
getting
Let
peeled.
it go.
Okay.
All right. So thank you so much for listening to these two morons.
Rub two brain cells together.
End of day. Okay. We will
I'm gonna
stop
go
talking.
negotiate a sexual feast. So I gotta go.
Oh, go find out what that is. Listen to the podcast. And all of Dr. Tara's links will be in our show notes.
Let's get into it.
Enjoy the episode.
Cleansing all of us. We're gonna have
Oh yes, I love a selenite wand cleanse. ASMR me, baby.
We love it.
You are being cleansed. This podcast is going to be the best podcast you've ever done.
Oh my God. You
People
have
are
great
going to love
ASMR
it.
voice.
You have such
I'm
good
trying.
ASMR voice.
Please do an ASMR video, like a
I'm
little
gonna
reel. Oh,
It's
I
so
love it.
calming.
So calming.
Oh my gosh. Dr. Tara,
Hi.
welcome to Thoughts May Vary. We are so excited that you're here today.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, we've been waiting for this day. And our audience, we already mentioned to you, freaking out. Freaking out, the influx of questions that we have from them. I love that people it makes me really happy because sometimes when I post these like question boxes on Instagram, I'm like, okay, I hope that people, especially when we're talking about sex, I'm like, I hope that people like go in on these questions.
Mm-hmm.
And audience, I didn't mean to underestimate you, but you really pleasantly surprised me. I was so happy with just how, just no shame, give the questions as it should be. It really thrilled me.
Love
it. Okay, so before we dive into them, because we have so many, we ask every guest to begin, what are you unpacking? So anything you're kind of moving through or working on or figuring out in real time, and you can take that as light or deep as you want, whatever comes to mind.
Oh, this is easy for me because I've been doing this since last year and I'm bringing it into 2024 as well,
Cool.
is unpacking workaholism.
Oh,
yeah.
let's talk about it. Let's get into it.
Please.
You know, my chart
Tell
is
us.
like work chart. Like, you know, I'm a Virgo, and then like a lot of places in my chart is like I just love working. And also I grew up in a culture where achievements are like celebrated, but also like what's next, right? Like I'm originally from Thailand. In my culture, both my parents are high achieving, quote unquote, you know, traditional in a traditional sense, high achieving people. And I think growing up, it was always like if I wasn't achieving, I wouldn't get love.
Yeah.
So I was always trying to push it and then looking forward to what's next. And I know for the last 5 years of starting my own sex and relationship business and growing into this sexually confident person, I realized that working a lot goes against all the other things I want to do and the person I want to be. So I've been unpacking working too much for the last like over a year now with a busyness coach.
Ooh. Wow.
And so, in 2024, my words are balance, like 100% balance is my top word, fun, and surrender. Like, I don't need to control everything. I don't need to push really hard to get a new role or a new gig. I'll just, you know, good things come easily.
Yes.
Love that phrase.
Love that reframe. Yes.
Are there any like little steps? I know you said you're working with the coach and you have these words top of mind, but are there any habits that you're implementing in order to achieve that? I love how we just say achieve that as we're talking about achieving.
Yes, I am working on it.
Yes.
Yeah. There you go.
Yes, it is. To me, you know, I don't feel like I need to like change myself completely. So even saying like I'm achieving rest, like it's still fun for me to say. And my coach is like, feel free to just, you know, that's who you are. It's okay. And so the little steps that I'm doing, and I'm loving doing this for the last year, is actually putting in the calendar my rest time.
Cool.
Yes. Yeah, cool. You have to, because if you don't have anything on the calendar, like let's say you have emails like 2 hours of the day, podcast 2 hours, writing 3 hours. And if there's any like 30 minutes or 1 hour in between, I'll just end up working anyways.
Yeah.
Like I'll check my emails, I'll like research something, I'll share something on my social media. But if I actually put in 1 hour, and let's say, you know, I also learned this, and I think for all the workaholic girlies will understand this, you can't just say rest. like you have to specify an activity, because
Yes.
if you say rest, you won't rest. Like
Yes,
you
I
know,
get you.
you'll
I
go
get that.
on Instagram, like I'll go on Instagram and then I'll just end up like working, like I'll end up posting a story or responding to
Mhm.
Right.
comments. So you have to specify. So for example, 1 hour block out, like baking, bake chocolate chip
Aw,
cookies,
Cool.
yeah.
or 2 hours blocked out hiking at this place. Um, 1 hour block out, like read this book at least 30 pages. And it helps me a lot. And I think this will help all the people that are addicted to work.
Yeah.
I'm going to implement that because I feel you a lot when it comes to blocking out moments of rest, especially for those of us that work from home. It can just feel like, okay, I have nothing else to do, so let me just knock all of this stuff out and just get it
Yeah.
done. But then it's not like I end up working less hours or I end up sort of ending the day earlier. Like I'm still ending the day at like the same time that I would if I was at like a regular 9 to 5, but now I'm just so burnt out because I didn't have human interaction. I didn't actually
Yeah.
give myself a proper lunch break like people get. Like all
Right.
those little things that we had in the workplace, I have not been giving to myself. And so if I do block out like moments of rest, I'm the same way as you. I'll just like end up on Instagram. Or like
Yeah.
I'll
I'll
end
end
up just
up
being like,
doing
whatever,
some
let me
like,
check my email. It's like not using my brain. It's fine.
it's passive work, but it's
Yeah.
still not honoring the rest your body really
Right.
needs.
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny that you said that, because I think, for the last like 5 years, I have not taken a lunch break.
Mm.
Like I eat through lunch, or I just don't eat lunch. I eat lunch and work, or I don't eat lunch. And
Yeah.
I'm not doing that at all for the last 10 days. Like
That's
I've been
right.
taking the time, like I'll eat lunch while I read, or I'll eat lunch and I call my friend, or I go out to eat lunch with my friends. Like it's been really, really nice. And then when I come back, I actually like get an afternoon coffee and I work much faster.
Yeah.
See,
So
that's
I
the
really
that's the
didn't need
funny
that hour.
trick. Right.
Yeah.
That's the funny trick is like we push ourselves past burnout where we don't realize that rest is actually productive. And if you do give yourself those moments of very intentional rest, you come back to your work with such a clearer head, better perspective, more creative problem solving. Like you're more likely to be more creative, be more productive having
Yeah.
taken the rest than working through it.
Mhm.
But it feels counterintuitive,
It
especially to
does.
people that fall into the workaholism. I love 10 days strong, baby. Let's go.
Love it. Let's join
Yeah.
you on this.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
getting lunch after this.
Oh, yes,
That's
you are.
right.
I love it. Okay. We heard you talk about on a podcast how you found a sense of sexual confidence through your relationship with your husband.
Mhm.
And I feel like we hear this narrative often of this idea of being like a completed product by the time that you meet
Mm,
your partner or before you can even get into a relationship. And I don't think we highlight as much as we should the beautiful growth that can happen in a partnership and how that doesn't diminish from your individuality or your ability or strength or anything like that. So I'm just curious if you could talk to us a little bit about what that journey looked like and how that relationship has been healing for that part of your sexual journey.
So when I was younger, I was married before. And from where I'm from, my career success at the time, which like I got a job as a tenure track professor at Cal State University, my life was going well in terms of career.
mm,
But my parents are like, oh, we really want you to get married. Like, where's your husband? You should have a child. So at the time, with cultural and societal pressure and my personal misguided belief, I went on a hunt for a husband.
Mm.
And at that time, I was on every app. Found a husband on Tinder. He was on paper checking every box.
Mhm.
Every box that I thought I had, and every box that my parents had for me.
mm.
He was, attractive, wealthy, house on the beach, kind, uh, love Thailand, and a Buddhist. So checked
Wow.
every box. So at the time, I was just like, you know what? Like, this is what you're supposed to want, right? Like Prince Charming coming in, like checks every box, like let's just get married. So we got married really fast. We got married in 6 months.
Mm.
And I was married for a couple of years, but during that time, what I didn't realize was I was married to my parents' dreams
Yeah.
and not my dream. And
Mm,
how
mhm.
I realized that was through a lot of personal development practices, as well as um, a lot of psychedelic journeys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was
I want to get into that.
exploring in that realm as a newbie and
Mhm.
getting into that in a therapeutic sense more and more. And what it had helped me was to realize my own desires in life.
Mm.
Um, and I was able to articulate it with a pen and paper into my journal. And I remember I wrote out all the things that I desire in life. And I realized that with this partner, it was never going to happen.
Mm. Mhm.
So, I had to ask for a divorce. And it was a very, very, very difficult time. At
Yeah.
that time, my sexual confidence, my self esteem was very bruised
Right.
because ask anyone who has gone through divorce, it
Yeah.
bruises your self esteem and self worth big time, especially coming from a sex and relationship expert.
Yeah.
How embarrassing. You can't even, quote unquote, keep your husband.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Mhm.
I had this narrative in my head back then was like, how embarrassing is this? Um, but the blessing in moving forward and having a clean slate in a way, it's never a clean slate because you have, all your baggages. But I always tell people divorce is actually amazing. It gives you brand new opportunities. Like the world is in the palm of your hands and you can now design your life exactly how you want it because you learn from your mistakes, hopefully.
Mm.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So for me, going into this new relationship, I was only looking for one thing, the thing I never had with my previous partner. And that thing was chemistry.
Mm.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
wasn't too worried about checking the boxes. I
Mhm.
was much more intentional about my body's visceral reaction towards being with this person. And this is new to me. Being a
Mhm.
professor, a quantitative researcher, I analyze and think all the time. And that's how
Mhm.
I got in that first marriage. However, through the psychedelic and personal development journey, I learned that my body is the most intelligent thing out of all of this whole thing.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
it's not my brain, it's the body telling me, oh, get away from this person. Even like when you hang out with new people or friends
Yep.
that are toxic, like your body tells you,
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
your neck hurts, your stomach is like not feeling good. You just don't feel good when you hang out with people not with not so good energy. So with my new partner at the time, all I cared about was how does my body feel when I'm with
Mm.
him.
Mhm.
And from then on, I realized like, oh wow, of course it wasn't like love at first sight, but it was attraction instantly.
Mm.
I was instantly attracted to this person, his looks, his energy, his passion. And he would say he has the same thing for me, but it wasn't love, right? Love at first sight to me is a little silly. However, after casually developing the relationship for 6 months, I realized that my body is very at peace when I'm with this person.
Mm.
Have you ever felt that? I assume
Oh,
that you
yeah.
feel this with your partners.
My favorite thing
Yeah.
to say is love is a regulated nervous system.
Mhm.
No
And it
way. That's a
feels
good
it's my
saying.
favorite thing to say because I think people mistake that feeling of safety with boredom. And it's like, no, no, no,
Mm.
babe, at least speaking from personal experience, if you're used to chaos, safety and that stability can almost be unnerving because you're like, whoa, there's nothing here. But then you realize, no, 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 like that true love is that grounded. My husband and I, when
Mhm.
we first got together, said we were simultaneously each other's chill pill and hype man. Like you ground and support and stabilize me,
Yeah.
but also like hype me up, and you have the flirtation and the energy, but that regulated nervous system, baby, nothing is like it.
No.
I
And
love
once you
that.
feel that, you can't go back. Like once you
Yeah.
feel that, it's, if that relationship doesn't work out, because, you know, we can often have many soulmates in this lifetime. If that relationship doesn't work out, but you've already felt that, your picker, I so believe, is just going to be so much stronger,
Ooh,
even with friends.
Mhm.
Because once
yes.
you even forget about romantic relationships, like if we're talking about specifically, we get asked a lot about friendships on here, and thinking
Mhm.
about platonic friendships, once you've gone through the chaos of having friends who don't make you feel good about yourself, who put you down,
Mhm.
who are comparing themselves to you, whatever it is, and then you find friends who calm your nervous system and make you feel
Mhm.
grounded and make you feel loved and taken care of. Once you have that, like the odds of you getting shitty friends in the future are much lower, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
already recognize what that feels and you'll no longer accept otherwise.
Right.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, like when you do find someone that, you know, you feel very at peace with
Mm-hmm.
in a space, you just don't ever kind of want to mess it up. Like you want to be able
Yeah.
to embrace like all kinds of hard things together. I think
Yes.
we give our partner a lot more leeway and attention and understanding and empathy when we feel calm with them. You
Mm-hmm.
know, being like a sex coach, and I see a lot of couples that come in and they're fighting and they're yelling at each other and they're bickering. I can immediately tell that in their bodies they don't feel good together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm a big believer of like somatic therapy. So I like usually send
Yes.
them to a somatic therapist to work on their bodies together and to feel better together first before we even talk about something else.
Mm-hmm.
I think traditional therapy, like talk therapy, not to go on us, I'll come back to my sexual confidence in a bit,
Do
but
it.
I
Go on
think
Take
the
the
tangent.
tangent.
traditional therapy to me, because I've done it for a while now, like traditional therapy works to a certain point, but I think there are a lot of
I agree.
things that are in your body, so you
Yeah.
need to work with a somatic therapist,
Yeah.
or a somatic coach or a movement person, or you know, even like a physical therapist. Like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things are stored in the body, so I think you should couple it together, you know, because
Yes.
some things you
Yes.
can't like talk it out.
You have to
Totally.
diversify your healing. Like one
Yeah.
style of therapy isn't going to work forever. Like we're multifaceted, unique little beings. Like you
Yes.
gotta switch things up. You gotta try different stuff.
100%. Okay, so coming back to meeting my husband, and you know, the idea of like, oh my god, but I wasn't complete. Should I have waited
Mm-hmm.
to be healed or
Yeah.
complete and extremely confident on my own in order to be with this person? With him and how calm I was feeling, I didn't even question that. I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
question, wow, like will he leave me because of ABC? Because we felt so safe together, that wasn't even the issue. So for me, whenever I teach people, I'm like, I think a skill that I had learned that is extremely valuable now is tuning in to my body and really receiving messages from my body.
Yeah.
And it sounds woo woo sometimes. And I know this because, like, I'm a Western trained researcher, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, like, so many things are not things that you can talk about, or like it's something you feel in your
Mm-hmm.
body.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, with him, that's how I felt. And so, through a lot of communication and reaffirming to each other, I think I have rebuilt very, very strong self esteem and a very strong sexual confidence with this partner. And I do for him because he wasn't exploring sexually as a variety of sexual experience as much as I had. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like he had never been to a sex party. You know, so for him, dating me, that was a whole different realm that
Yeah.
he was uncertain about. However, we always had shared values of
Mm-hmm.
exploration. So that will never go away. We'll be 80 years old and we'll still be exploring because that's our core values. So in conclusion, whenever people say like, oh my God, like what should be in my like ideal man list or woman or whoever, I just always say I don't know. It depends on what your core values are. The only two things that I base my relationship on is number one, chemistry, and not just sexual chemistry, just your whole body's
emotional, your
chemistry.
body.
Yeah. Like how do you
soul
feel
chemistry
being with them?
Right.
And then number two is core values. Do you have similar core values? If you have to cite 5 core values of yours, do they have at least 4? Because it will be hard if they only have 3 or 2. I believe. I think it has to surpass at least half. So being a quantitative researcher, I'm like, what are your core values? Give me your own 5 core values. Like, do you even understand yourself? Because do you notice sometimes you ask people and they don't know what their core values are?
Of course, yeah. We're not taught to explore that.
We're not.
Like these are the exact type of like sexual education, mental health. Like these are the exact things that so desperately need. And it's funny, a community member asked about this, that we need more formal education that like maybe doesn't come from schools, because we've seen how problematic that is. Like it's just, we need this systemized so badly in culture, and we're just not getting it effectively. So we're not even taught to explore that.
You made a really good point that I want to highlight before we move on about how, so we often talk about how it doesn't matter in what ways you and your partner are growing, as long as you're both committed that there's going to be growth. You don't need to be growing at the exact same time. You don't need to be doing the exact same thing, but like you're both growing and you're both flourishing, and that's the goal. So I love that you highlighted that you guys have that mutual value of exploration and curiosity, and that you're going to continue to explore throughout your relationship, but it doesn't need to be in the exact same way. Maybe you're introducing him to these different things that comes with exploration, whether it's sexual exploration or elsewhere. Maybe he's introducing you to other things. Like it doesn't, I think sometimes we get really caught up and they have to be our exact version of ourselves.
Type
just
of
like
growth. And,
that we need to be doing the exact same thing. We want to be doing like everything together, and that's not the case at all. I don't think that's realistic at all. So I love that you made that you underlined that.
Yeah, it is not realistic. And honestly, like I think anyone in long-term relationships will agree with this. The number one skill is patience. You need so much patience for your partner. And whenever people are in conflict, the tool that I offer to my followers is look at your partner as a 5-year-old.
Oh.
What would you say to a 5-year-old, even if you're angry? What would you have so much more compassion for them and allow them to cry, allow them to be upset, and ask questions in a gentler way versus treating them as an adult? So I'm always, I think patience very important in a long-term relationship, because if you're in a relationship where there's a lot of individuality, there will be conflict.
Yeah, naturally.
And if there's no conflict at all, I feel like that's a red flag, because that's my previous relationship. I feel like everything was just neutral.
Right.
It was neutral.
And what way is that to live? Flatlined.
Yeah.
You need the up and down of a heartbeat. Like you can't have neutrality in a relationship that's flatlining.
It felt very like just neutral.
Yeah. I love everything you said, especially because one of my favorite things you've ever said is secure attachment style makes sex kinkier. Yes. And I feel like your entire example of how you found that with your husband is so indicative of that. Like that regulated nervous system, that safety, that connection, patience, core values, like that's what makes you so much more able to explore safely together. And when you feel safe, you can push boundaries. It's like that counterintuitive, the same thing, how rest is productive. It's that like counterintuitive balance of how the safety allows you to push boundaries and explore and play even more.
100%. 100%. Like emotional connection, emotional safety is the number one step into sexual exploration in the non-traditional realm together. If there isn't emotional safety, you can't really explore non-traditional sex together. because it will ruin relationships. And that's where a lot of people cite like open relationships or threesomes or sex parties like ruin marriages. I'm like, no, it was probably already ruined.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very clear distinction. I feel that 100%.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm not in a fully open relationship. I'm in a monogamish marriage.
I've heard you say that. I love all your terms. Yes, I've heard you talk about it. I love it. Please explain for our listeners, though.
So a monogamish relationship is similar to a monogamous relationship where it's like 95% of the time it just functions exactly the same. You are committed to one person. This is your life partner. You do things together. You talk openly. You share a lot of connection. However, from time to time, you sexually explore with others together. So it's very simple. If, you know, we're thinking, for example, this New Year's Eve, we went to a sex party, right? And then this coming Friday, we're going to a sex party. Like, it's not necessarily this often all the time. But yeah, like if couples want to go, like every quarter, we go explore something sexually non-traditional. Like that could be a monogamish relationship. But my favorite thing about being in a monogamish relationship is like the design your own relationship menu.
Yes.
It's literally what you want. Because for us, like one of my rules is we don't kiss other people. And, you know, a lot of people are shocked because they're like, okay, so you can have sex with other people, you don't kiss? I'm
like, kissing is intimate. I get that.
Kissing is very intimate. I think kissing, a lot of times kissing for me, not for everybody, kissing is like love, like that loving energy and that like bond between two people. However, if someone wants to join in and give my partner a blowjob and have sex with me or finger me, like I'm cool with that.
Right.
You know, but it's different. So the cool thing about monogamish is all my friends and clients that are in monogamish relationships have different rules. Like there isn't like a sex Bible for monogamish people to follow. It's just like whatever you want. Some people only have sex with other people together. Some people, they allow each other to do it separately, but only once a year. Some people, like, you know, it's just so fun. It's choose your own adventure.
A lot of the questions we got from community and questions we've seen in the past are very much like, what should this look like? How many times should I be having sex? What does, and I think the whole answer is like,
it's depends.
Whatever it works for you. It depends. Like there is no one size fits all model. Like your sex life does not have to look like your best friends, like someone you see on the internet. Like it is so different and individual for every person and couple.
But it's like unsatisfying for people, isn't it? Like when they ask you a quantitative question, like whenever numbers are involved, like how many times or how long, or, you know, you're just like, it depends. The answer is always, it depends. And I know it's not very satisfying to hear that. So sometimes I'll pull like research and I say, okay, based on this research that surveyed 500 people, here's the average. Like, how do you feel about that? It's up to you. So it's helpful, you know. For example, one of the most common questions that I get from people in relationships is, how many times in a week should we have sex?
It's everyone's first question. I feel like that's always the first. It's everyone's first question.
They're like gut checking whether or not their relationship is healthy.
So I would say, you know, it depends. Like if you are both super busy, maybe you're pregnant, maybe there's, you know, illness in your extended family. Like there's so many variables. And you only have sex once a month, but it's amazing and you are connected. Like that's all good. But then people are never satisfied because they're like, well, but what does the research say?
Right.
So what the research says is it's a correlational study, so not a causation, but couples that have sex at least once a week reported having higher sexual satisfaction and relationship satisfaction. So that is my go-to answer, is that's what a large study found. Once a week.
Good go-to answer.
high quality, because quality means more, right?
Okay, we've
Quality.
unpacked this on the podcast too, because I feel like, I mean, obviously, so many different variables and age was involved, but in my past relationships, I may have had sex more frequently, but less satisfyingly.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
now it's much more like we ebb and flow, like you say, like depending on where I'm at in my period,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what type of work schedule Aaron has that week. Like we're much more into like phases. Like we go in phases where we're having a lot of sex and less and kind of like oscillate a little bit. But even in those less phases, I'm so much more satisfied
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
long term with less sex than I ever have been in the past.
I
And
love
of course,
that.
some of that is emotional connectivity, some of that is like age, whatever. But I love that because I don't think people talk about that enough. The distinction between frequency and satisfaction is
Mm-hmm.
not always what it seems.
No, not at all. Always quality over quantity.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's get into these
I know,
juicy
we have
questions
so many
because
good
we have so
questions.
many. And I know you're going to be chock full of the best answers.
Oh, take it away, Meadow.
Should I kick it off?
Yes,
Okay.
kick it off.
Our first audience question: how to balance wanting sex to be intimate and connective, but also hot and fun?
So first off, I would like to understand the person that's asking. I like to understand their sexual profile. Because the thing is, every single person has a different sexual profile, the different characteristics that make up their sexuality and sexual desires and preferences. Not to plug this so early, but I have a survey on my website where you can go take this quiz and you can go understand your own sexual profile.
Ooh.
It's kind of like a Myers-Briggs, like I'm
Yes.
ENFJ.
Sexual
love it.
Myers-Briggs.
Yeah,
Pause the
yeah.
episode, go take the
Yeah,
survey.
I'm ENFJ on Myers-Briggs, but on my
Oh my
website,
God, we're
there's
so
a quiz.
close.
Go take it. You'll understand yourself better. Have your partner take it. You'll understand them better. So to answer this question, once you know your sexual profile, or if you know that you're leaning towards someone who likes more consistency over, like excitement and novelty all the time, then there is no shame in also just loving your vanilla sex. There's no vanilla shaming. Vanilla sex can be divine, juicy, connecting, amazing, orgasmic, multiple orgasms. So sometimes when people are on the internet and they see, oh my God, all these other people are doing handcuffs and flogging and they do these ball gag and these spicy things, it just feels like we're not doing enough.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe you don't need to.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, because if your orientation isn't that, you don't need to force yourself to do it. You can enjoy your own type of sex, but maybe in enhanced ways. So let's talk about two different ways people who love towards more vanilla, comfortable sex versus people who love kinky sex. Two different ways to both spice things up. The first way for both people to spice things up is to understand each other's threshold of kinkiness. So, because if you don't understand each other's threshold, you can offend your partner.
Sure.
I had this couple that were my clients last year where the guy really, really wanted to try cuckolding. And cuckolding is like intense if you're from like a small town, you've never heard about sex, you've never talked about sex, you got married when you were 22, like the wife was very, very concerned. She reached out, booked a session, we all talk about it, and she just feels like she's being attacked, and she feels unsafe now because her husband is pushing her to have sex with other people while he watch, which to me sounds like a fun activity because my threshold for kinkiness is high. Like from 1 to 10, I'm probably an 8, right? But for my client, for this woman, she was 2. So, first off, it's so important to understand people's thresholds and also their desired threshold, current threshold, and desired threshold. So let's do this activity for both of you. Like, what do you think is your current threshold?
Okay, well, if you said 8, I immediately recategorized myself in my head.
Right. She's
I was like, so definitely not that. So I think my current would probably be like a 5 or 6. And now my new ideal would be a 7.5.
Okay. That.
I think I'm near to you. I think right now, so quick little background without derailing, but like the last few years has been really, I got off birth control like 3 years ago now. And my body has just been doing a dance ever since. And I've always been a very sexual person. And like, I'm a Taurus. I love pleasure. I love like that part of life. But because of this like dance that my body's been doing, I feel like I'm really like my sex life gets mandated by like how I'm feeling in my body. Obviously, a lot of people feel that way. So like if my weight is fluctuating and I don't feel like sexy, or like I'm just like, ugh, or even in the winter where I'm like, oh my God, I'm not as tan as I normally am. Like, I don't even want to fucking see myself naked. Like, it just depends. So I feel like right now, even just like hormonally where I'm at, I'm probably at like a 5.5. I think normally I'm like a 7.
You mean in terms of your like kinkiness orientation?
Yeah.
Because I feel like the kinkiness is more like values rather than actions. Like if you think about kinky means unconventional, non-traditional, right?
Right.
So first we have to categorize like what is traditional? Traditional is missionary sex, dim lights, maybe oral sometimes. That's pretty much like traditional sex, right? So now when we say kinky, we're talking about unconventional, non-traditional sex that other people
Babe, if you manifest with your orgasm, you're higher up on that list.
We sure do. Magic. If you're doing sex magic,
yes, we've talked about it on the podcast. Yeah, we love sex magic.
Yeah. So if you're, 5 now and you're aiming for a 7, so with your partner, like ask the same question. Where do you think your kinkiness threshold is, and what is your desired one? Because when I asked that client, she said, I think I'm a 2 and my desire is maybe a 3. So I'm like, okay, so cuckolding is like a 9. So I don't think that this will ever happen. And, breaking news to couples that have conflict is really hard. But that's where like the professional third party comes in, right? Like, let me break it to you. Like, you'll never try this practice. And that's okay is it okay or not? It's up to you.
Right.
It's so interesting because now that I'm thinking about the distinction that you made of what your threshold is versus your desire versus comfortability with the person. Like, Meadow knows I've had a sexual partner in the past where their threshold was way higher than mine. And like comfortability was way higher than mine. And the nature of our relationship was very purely sexual. And so we were trying certain things that I think that if I were trying with a person that I was more comfortable with, like emotionally, that I would have enjoyed more. But I think because there was like that disconnect and like there wasn't that like, I knew I was safe and like consciously I knew I was secure. But I think that like subconscious trust of like this person wasn't obviously there. And so my comfortability with feeling like even very dominated, which normally I enjoy, I felt discomfort around with that person. Because I was like, I don't know you like that. And I don't know if I don't know if I want that with you. Do you know what I mean? It's just it's an interesting, it's so case by case. It's so case by case.
It is case by case, because I remember dating this guy briefly in LA and we were hanging out a lot, having a lot of sex. And I just remember he wanted to try like certain role play, but then I would look at him and I would laugh because I'm like,
oh my God,
I can't make it through. Good at doing this role play.
Aaron and I laugh every time. I can't make it through. It's so funny.
Oh my God.
It's so funny. And no one makes me laugh more than him in general.
You know what I'm saying?
So role play, it's not cut out for us, at least at this point, because we fucking crack so easy. Like if you try it doesn't matter, out in public, at home by ourselves, like we're fucking laughing our asses off.
Yeah.
And also laughing during sex is fun.
You two role playing for the oh my God.
Oh my God. If we try, we laugh so hard that we're like crying. Like we can't, but then it's also fun. And laughing during sex is fun too.
Yeah.
But I'm not committed. We can't commit to the bit.
No,
We take it too far. We can't
and it's
commit to
all
it.
very like preference based, right? I have a
Yeah.
follower on my Instagram that said like, I can't ever do role play, but I love getting pissed on. I'm like, see, there's like different
There you
non-traditional
go.
things,
There
but
you
There you
go.
go.
yeah, it's just
There you
different
go.
things, different
Yeah.
strokes for different folks. So
Take
that
words right out
first
of my mouth.
aspect for both vanilla people and kinky people is to figure out their threshold and their desired threshold. This conversation will then carry forward into like, ooh, so if this is our threshold, this is our desired one, what should we
Right.
try within
Right.
the realm of your own comfortability?
Oh,
The
I love
second
that.
aspect that I always recommend people trying, and I've had a lot of clients trying this and it has been quite successful. I would say only one couple came back and was like, it did nothing, was sex feast. Have you ever heard of that?
No, please explain.
Yes. So I learned this in like somatic therapy, but sex feast is a trust contract between two people that they are committing to feasting in a sexual activity, different types of sexual activity every single day for a certain period of time. So, for example, a common one is a 7-day sex feast. And you can kind of time it with like break or holiday or like a trip or, whenever it's like easier. But it's a practice where you're rebuilding your sexual connection for each other, passion for each other, and also getting through that kind of commitment together, you'll really gain a lot more emotional connection and trust. If you don't break it, it really builds
Because
that
you're making
trust
a
again.
promise and showing up for yourself.
Yes,
Which, like any
exactly.
habit, builds self-trust. Yeah, that makes a lot of
Exactly.
sense.
And it's not all penetrative sex, right? We always
Right.
encourage mixing things up every single day, but figure out like a period of time that you would like to try sex feast and then try the sex feast together. Maybe even make it a little ritualistic. Like
Yeah.
light some candles, hold each other's hands. Like I commit to 7-day sex feast with you, and try that for 7 days. And whether or not you're vanilla or you're kinky, you will then together plan out the 7-day practice, what you're gonna do daily, and it could be first day the sex that we've been having. Second day, oral only. Third day, fingering only. Like fourth day, we're just doing sexual meditation together. Fifth day, we're both masturbating but looking at each other. The sixth day, we're gonna do sexting. The seventh day, we're gonna, do anal, like whatever it is. But you can kind of plan out your 7-day sex feast. And yeah, I've seen people regain passion and trust and also like self-confidence because they're like, I can't believe I just
Yeah.
had sex for 7 days. um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I these are the practices and perspectives I recommend.
Okay, another listener asked when they're referring to a guy, but I feel like anybody can be looped into this. So when somebody says that they want more instruction or direction, how do you actually convey that?
So in our field, we call this micro sexual communication or interactional sexual communication. And based on research and also my own personal experience, there's no way around it. There's no beat around the bush. It's giving verbal instruction during sex. So let's say your partner is going down on you, it's too much tongue, it's too wet. What you will then say is giving a little bit feedback, but a lot of alternatives. For example, mm, um, feeling a little wet. Can you use a little less tongue? Or oh, I love how that feels. Let's try this too. Let's get a let's do a break on that. Can you put a finger in me? Those are just some examples of alternatives where
Gentle
you would
redirection.
verbally give this feedback. When people say, I really can't, I don't feel safe saying those things during sex, it's probably indicative of the health of the relationship in general. And maybe what they need first is the macro sexual communication, which is talking about sex with your partner, not during sex, about sex. So over coffee, over dinner, over a hike,
Mm-hmm.
talk about your sex life, talk about your hopes and dreams and desires and fantasies. And this type of conversation will then fuel your confidence in giving verbal feedback during sex. Because if you've never ever talked about sex before in your relationship, your partner may be taken aback when
Totally.
you do
In
give
the
verbal
moment.
Yeah.
feedback. Like, oh, where did this
Mhm.
Yeah.
come from? We've been together 10 years. I've been eating your pussy this way for the last 9 years.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong,
Yeah.
right? Like
Right.
it might feel a little bit they might feel like it's an attack or that they feel
Right.
taken aback. So yeah, you have to do these things together, like the macro and the micro sexual communication. They kind of go together and it shapes the relationship to be more open for feedback
Mhm.
in general.
This next question is a subject we've talked about a lot. So Gabby and I have both we have an episode called Unpacking Healthy Sex After Trauma. We've
Hmm.
both been in traumatic and I've been in an abusive relationship that also included sex abuse. So it's something that like
Mm.
we really like to be open about with our community. So we got a few questions about how to kind of move past bad experiences, how to heal from sex trauma, even getting over the fear of sex if you haven't done it in a while. So, any thoughts around sex after trauma?
3 tips like immediately pop in my head is number one, it's good to talk to a sex therapist about your sexual trauma. It's hard to process it by yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's also hard to just tell a friend and hope that they will help therapize you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Not their job.
no,
Mhm.
it's not, and they probably don't have the tools.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you feel like it's really a big boundary, no, sorry, a big barrier in your sex
Mm,
life, it's worth like investing into sex therapy for this particular um, issue that you experience. And I have to say, like, other therapists that are not trained specifically for sexual trauma are
mm-hmm.
not good therapists for this issue.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had a therapist about 7 years ago. And I remember vividly, I was telling her about my desires in exploring um, polyamory or open relationship. I remember she was questioning me. She said, but do you really? But do you really want that? If you have a
Mm.
loving partner, maybe work on it with them
Oof.
first.
Oof.
Yeah, so she was
Yeah.
really inserting her values
Yeah.
and how she
A
lives
lot
her
of
life.
projecting. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, when it comes to sex and sexual exploration as well as sexual trauma, it's really important to talk to a therapist that was trained specifically for this. And there's also,
Not to completely cut you off, but if you have any tips for how to find a good sex therapist, we get asked all the
yes,
time how to find a good therapist that's a right fit for you in general. So, specifically with sex trauma, too, any resources, any
yes,
ones you love, shout
100%.
them out. Yeah.
So for sex therapists, AA Sect is really good. So AASECT. If
Mm-hmm.
you Google that, it will
I'll link
pop
all of
up.
these.
AA Sect. Yeah. So
Okay.
it's a sex certification organization. It's one of the most like legitimate ones where the people that were trained from there are therapists that are trauma informed, kink informed, and can really help you through the process of healing from sexual assault and sexual abuse. So I would highly recommend that as the first step or one of the steps. The
Okay.
second one that I would love for more people to try because it works for me is somatic therapy or
Mhm.
Yeah.
sexological body work.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
working through sexual trauma or bad experiences with the body. You can talk to a therapist, but you can also move your body with a therapist.
Yeah.
So, if you Google sex somatic coaches or certified sexological body work. You'll find people in your area. And unfortunately, it doesn't exist that much in small towns.
Mhm.
But
Mm.
if your schedule and resources allow you to go somewhere, like definitely like LA, there's a lot. New York,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot.
I wonder if there's virtual practices too, because like some of the
There
somatic
are
exercise, if
virtual
you're just led over
practices.
Zoom.
Yeah. You can do somatic over Zoom, but not
Right.
sexological body work because that's where the therapist touches you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And sexological body work also involves like, it involves orgasm if you want it to.
Mm-hmm.
So the sexological body worker can work on your body, work through like the different areas that tense up, certain areas that make you cry, certain areas that feel okay and neutral. And then if you're working through like or orgasm issues, they can also work on your body to stimulate it and arouse it and try to get you to get to orgasm so you can experience the orgasm and then talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a practice that not a lot of people have heard of. Basically, my clients always go like, "Oh my god!" So basically, you go have sex. In a way, yeah. In a way, yes, but it's not necessarily for sexual gratification. It's for
Right.
healing.
Right.
So that would be my second tip. And then my third tip, and I've seen this in a lot of people that are healing from sexual assault, is a mindful masturbation practice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about
And
that on here
if
before
you
too.
don't want other people to touch you yet, that's fine. You can start kind of slow and touching yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't even have to go to the clit or the penis to have a masturbation routine. You can even start just massaging your whole body and massaging your nipples, massaging the pubic area, and go slow. And if it allows, then stimulate the genitals. And if your body allows, then try coming, and then go from there. Building this trust within yourself and in your own sexual routine, I think, will then translate in the future into the ability to trust someone else to have sex with you.
Yeah. I watched a YouTube video recently that I also really liked, that in a similar of mindful masturbation, they were talking specifically about getting into dirty talk. And if you feel uncomfortable expressing yourself in the moment having sex, whether it's feedback or dirty talk or whatever it is, practice that by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And like learn to do it while you're
Mm-hmm.
masturbating. Practice saying it to yourself. It feels like you're
Mm-hmm.
even more having sex with yourself, and then you can start, it feels easier to communicate in the moment with someone else when you've communicated out loud by
Mm-hmm.
yourself as well. So like even the
That's
giving,
true.
like give yourself feedback while you're
Yeah.
like mindfully masturbating, and then
Yeah.
learn to kind of practice that out loud. I saw that just the other day and I thought, oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I
It
love
is
that.
a really good one.
Yeah.
I
I like
remember
how
practicing saying like, like I love your big cock.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
literally what she was saying. Like practice, like literally have sex with yourself and affirm out loud and talk about it.
Yeah.
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 Especially like I know that I feel like I've had this conversation with friends before of like when even like I'm thinking back on like being in college and like a lot of us having like long distance relationships and doing a lot of like phone sex or like FaceTime sex or things like that and like getting comfortable with doing those things on your own first. But I love that your approach is so gentle because I feel like that's a big
Yeah.
misconception that people often have when they approach sex therapists or they approach any sort of conversation around sex in general, that it just has to be this 0 to 100 thing, and it's
Yeah.
not. And so I'm really grateful for your very gentle approach to all of this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I try to be gentle with myself and therefore, all the people that I
As a
help.
practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this next
It's beautiful. It
question,
shows.
we got asked this a lot in many different ways. So the question is tips for naturally increasing libido. Is it cycle syncing with libido levels? Libido. We've talked a lot about your libido and being on SSRIs and how that impacts it.
Recently, in the realm of like sexuality experts and practitioners, we've been trying to reorient our followers to understand libido versus sexual desire.
Mm.
People think, oh, I have low libido, it's just what I have. versus
Mm.
sexual desire kind of like moves around. And even when you feel in the moment a little bit lower sexual desire, like, I can have it or leave it. I'm watching
Mhm.
Survivor. I'm good. Eating popcorn. I'm good. You know?
Yeah.
Versus like, okay, let's say if my partner that I love starts initiating it with me and like stimulating my body, kissing my neck, and maybe touching my pubic area, can I then feel the desire in that moment?
Mm.
Maybe much more than back when I was watching Survivor and eating popcorn, now that I'm a little bit more stimulated.
Right.
So we think that thinking about our sex life as like sexual desires can occur on a daily basis based on what's going on in the day might feel a
Mm.
little bit more hopeful than,
Mhm.
oh, I have low libido.
Mhm.
Because there are people that feel as if, you can't come out of low libido mode.
Mhm.
um So let's say we do talk about sexual desires, and you do feel like most of the days, like I have clients that I ask them to log their desire throughout the day for 30
Mhm.
days, in the morning, midday, and evening.
Cool.
And it's color coded, and then we review it at the end. What was going on in the day? What does this mean? And a lot of times she will log like low desire when she wakes up.
Mm.
Mhm.
And either low or mid desire midday,
Mhm.
and then mid desire or higher desire in the evening. And I ask her what had changed throughout the day. And I asked her to be very, very aware and careful and really be in tune with her body. And she said, oh, you know what? Because my husband learned that I'm doing this practice with you. So almost every night, he has this like kind of self-care ritual practice waiting for me. So they were doing sexual meditation, or he was running her a bath, or he would
Cute.
be responsible for getting takeout rather than she.
Yeah.
Um, so small things changed,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
she had just more room to feel a little bit more sexual desire. So
Yeah.
I asked her, like, wouldn't this be nice if this was your life in general?
Mm.
She said,
Mhm.
yes. And I said, yeah, maybe sometimes people need a reminder, like to certain days, like take care of your partner.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like if you feel like, you're the only one doing the housework and this and that, like maybe you need to have a conversation. I don't want to jump
Mhm.
to the conclusion of like, oh, your partner is an asshole that never take the trash out. um, because sometimes people kind of just take things for granted, and
Yeah.
Right.
it is their fault for taking things for granted. But they need the reminder. They need the
Right.
conversation. Like sometimes I'll say something, and my partner would be like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Like I had no
Yeah.
idea."
Yeah.
Right? Like he'll say things that are like a little bit dismissive of my concerns, even though the concerns are generally small. I'll be
Right.
like, that's not okay. Like, that's
Mhm.
not okay. I would love for you to be more empathetic. Because, yeah, it might not be as, the consequences might not be as big as your problems, but it matters to me.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we then reorient our relationship. He apologizes, and now he knows. It's the same thing with sexual
Mhm.
desires. Like, if you feel, I'm doing so much in the house,
Mhm.
and I have like almost no room to feel sexy, horny, start sex,
Yeah.
then that's the like conversation starter of changing micro behaviors in a relationship to leave more
Right.
room for people to feel hornier.
Mm.
Right.
Um, so
And you
yeah, I
can
think
make those
seeing,
reminders sexy.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
you're taking out the trash example, that's one of my husband's jobs. I
yeah,
don't take out the trash, he does. But I've definitely reminded him before, when you take out the trash, like, I don't wanna touch it. It gives me the uglies. It makes me feel icky. Like, if I don't have to touch it, I feel more in my body.
there
Like,
you
I
go.
feel cuter. Like, maybe something might happen. Who's to say? Like, you can make the reminders, like, cute and
Yes,
sexual and, like,
totally.
initiate it that way too. And then he reframes, like, "Oh, I'm not just doing the chore. I'm making sure she feels beautiful. Like she doesn't have to touch it. She doesn't get like, it's a fun way to reframe that for your partner to be like, oh, you're providing something for me.
I think so. I loved your example actually, because like nobody likes nagging. Like I don't want someone nagging me.
No.
I don't want to be nagging anyone. So I want all the interactions to be.
I don't want to be your mother. I want to be bent over.
I want interactions.
That's not what we're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I really like that example. That's a good example.
Thank you.
It is a good one. It is a good one.
It also reminds me of. Well, your whole answer also reminds me of it's such a good tool. The log sounds like a beautiful tool to discover your pumpkin hours, which is another one of Gabby and I's favorite terms,
we love
which is basically it's the hours that sex is off the table for you. Like if I know every morning I wake up and like I need my 2 hours of self-care and I got to journal and get in my body, but at the end of the day, like your client, like my husband and I are setting up and ready to go, then maybe like my pumpkin hours are like from when I wake up till noon, like whatever they are. But that sounds like a really good log and time. Because then
pumpkin?
It's when Cinderella's carriage turns back into the pumpkin.
Yes, we read about this and now we're stuck on it because if
your partner initiates during your pumpkin hours, but you've never communicated, these are my pumpkin hours, then that can feel like a lot of rejection. So finding out if there is a consistency at all, maybe there isn't, but if there is, finding that out and communicating it, that's less rejection. So you're more likely. It just is like it's setting up the parameters to feel better with your partner and like more opportunities for success.
Yeah.
I gotta do like an Instagram reel and I'll tag you guys.
Oh my God,
cute. Yeah,
somebody asked about that. Somebody asked about like what to do when you're feeling tired, and that's immediately, or like when you're just tired from work or life or whatever, and immediately that's what came to mind. Like my boyfriend and I have had that conversation of like, I like to go to bed earlier than he does. And I was feeling like he'd crawl into bed and I'd basically be asleep and then he'd be like wanting to initiate sex. So I was like, after 11 p.m., like we're not fucking. So figure it out before. Like these are the hours that like I'm cool with it, but like I'm tired and I prioritize my sleep. And it frankly annoys me when you get in bed and then want to like wake me up because like now you want to have sex. Like no. And so, and he's communicated, we've communicated like that for each other, which I think, because like I am such a hibernation creature. Like if you wake me up and I'm sleeping, like that is my most
angry bear.
Thing. Like I'm
coming out of hibernation. Yeah.
I don't want to suck your dick now. Like, are you fucking kidding? No, thank you.
I have a question. Are there exceptions for you guys' pumpkin hours?
Yeah. I think like for me, they're much like more
on vacation.
Harsh. Yes.
Is there
vacation sex, all bets are off.
This is for me during the week when I'm like, I know that I want to be in bed by like 10 and I'm waking up by 7:30. Like I want my sleep. It's during the week. Weekends, who fucking cares? Vacation, bend me over on the balcony. Like it's fine. It's just
summer, even
for
winter. Like winter, I'm hibernating more, my sleep more. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I feel that. There's seasons for it.
100%. Summer is a lot sexier. Because then you're also
summer's
like
a lot sexier.
Dressing less clothes, dressing in less clothes and going to places, feeling ourselves. Like when we feel more turned on in life in general, then we feel more turned on to have sex.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was saying seasonal. About like, about me feeling tan. Like when I'm tan in the summer,
you're like, wanna fuck me?
Frankly, even warmer weather. Like if it's
Miami,
cold,
Meadow,
I'm like,
it's
hard to come if it's cold.
It's hard. That's true. Research found that women who have cold feet orgasm less.
Yes, so, I read that because I've been like, let me put on socks. I'm going to be waking with socks on like a weirdo in the winter because like,
Oh my God.
I saw that study.
That's amazing. I love that. Okay, we should do a couple more questions before we...
I know. I'm trying to choose through them because there's so many good ones.
Well, I have a good one that I want us to talk about because you brought it up in the beginning.
Okay, I do too.
We have a lot of listeners with immigrant families. And so I speak a lot, both my parents are Cuban immigrants. So I talk a lot from like the Latina perspective and what that, Catholic shame can look like and all that sort of stuff. And you sort of mentioned that in the beginning of the episode as well. Somebody was asking about just like the cultural shame around sex and sort of being able to overcome that when you grew up with a lot of sex shame from your family.
Great question. It's the process that I went through, and I think there's still some spillover effects certain times in my adult life now that it flashes, like, the toxic teachings like flashes in my head sometimes. But yeah, that was a long journey for me, that I had gone through, working through the shame that I have had from, certain cultural values being Thai. Like, Asian families have like similar values, and also gender roles for women in Asia,
Mm.
are still, I feel, a lot more conservative than metropolitan cities in America. And I say that because, like, there's also Utah, so I can't say all
There's always
America.
Utah.
Yeah.
There's always Utah.
But yeah, so growing up, what I was taught is like, yes, you need to get good grades, you can have some ambition, but ultimately you want to get married and have children and have a great, seemingly, perfect family and take care of your husband.
Mm.
And you don't want to be sexual because sexual girls are seen as witches and unmeritable and not an upstanding role model woman in society.
Mm.
You want to be discreet with your sexuality, and you also want to seem more innocent so that men can chase after you. And when you are married, you also want to remain somewhat innocent so that you are projecting this good submissive wife who is really good at taking care of her household and her husband. And that's a successful life based on the traditional narratives in my culture and a lot of Asian cultures. Of course, there will be listeners that are Asian that are listening that are like, oh, absolutely not. My parents are very independent. They tell me to go for things. I'm like, that is unique. That is good for you. Like, I really think that that's amazing. And there are families that are more modern in their values now, and they have changed through, multi-generational change. And I think that's beautiful. However, the fact is still there. And a lot of my friends back home are living this, is that that's the gender role for women.
Yeah.
So me going through all of those expectations and narratives that I grew up with, being someone in my 20s, the first thing that I was doing was having as much sex as possible to get over the shame, to be like anti-narrative. Right? Like, fuck all of this. I'm going to fuck all these people to prove that I don't need to be a submissive wife. However, that was misguided too.
Yeah.
I did that out of not understanding my true self, my values, my actual desires in life. So after that, I would say the best thing that I did in order to overcome my sexual shame from my culture is actually deconstructing the pros and cons of the culture that I'm from and the religion that I'm affiliated with, and then highlighting certain pros that I want to take into my adult life and crossing out the cons that I do not want to take into my adult life, and then try my best, rewrite this list, and then try my best to live based on these values. Because, Thai culture is beautiful. Thai food is amazing. And our family orientation, like how important family is beautiful to me. And the collectivistic feeling, like we go in groups, we do things in groups. I love that. I love the things that, my culture gives me. I also love being a Buddhist. Like, I love the meditation practice that I learned since I was 5. It's now really working. It fuels my workaholism, which I don't know, that's a different story. I love, certain teachings in Buddhism, but I also don't like that Buddhism limits people to just being with 2 people. like in a monogamous relationship, right? So I write things down that are pros and the things I like about my religion and the things I dislike about my religion and the way they teach things. And I just literally choose. I choose those things that I like, and then I fuse it with my current like adult life. People will say Americanized values. And then I just live based on the things I choose daily.
Yeah.
It takes time, but I think this deconstruction has been the best thing I did. And I did it in my journal. I think one of these days I should take a picture of it and post it.
That was the first thing in my head was, Dr. Tara, you are really such a journal girly. I live for it.
Yeah.
Like the way you write it all down, show your brain, pen to paper, like you're speaking my language.
Things are not true for me until it's written out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's true for our brain because in that same way that we're not taught to think about these things, I think when people give advice, it's hard to think, okay, like sit there and think about it. That's so elusive and so abstract versus taking the time to figure it out, to put it on the list or not is so much more of a clear answer to yourself.
Yeah.
So much more indicative, crossing it out, showing your brain what you don't want. Like it's almost more, like you said, it's more of a ritual. Yeah. It's like more of an act, more of a ritual to really show yourself. I love it. I love the tools.
I remember like crossing out, you know, the idea that like monogamous relationships are more worthy than other types of relationships and like crossing it out. Like, well, I disagree.
Yep.
Like, agree to disagree, right? Like you can exist as a religion. People can, you know, take advantage of being in that community. But at the same time, I don't need to believe in this one thing. And I can believe in this other thing. And I think that's the cool thing about modern society is like social media and like this podcast. And there's just so many resources for us to like design our own life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our own beliefs and values. When people ask like, so are you like fully a Buddhist? I'm like, yeah, I am a Buddhist, but like, it doesn't mean I have to do those 10 things, you know?
Totally.
And if someone questions me, that's an issue, not an ish me.
Yeah, baby.
I love that.
I love that.
It sounds like you have issues. So
oh my
you know,
gosh.
it's an issue, not an ish me. Like I live based on what I find to be aligned with my other values. And I think that's cool, you know?
Oh yeah.
It is cool.
Fuck yeah. I love that you're, again, just being gentle and introducing nuance into this conversation, because I have seen, we talk about it all the time on the podcast of like the moment people learn the word boundaries, they're like, fuck everyone else in my life, kick them all out, all this stuff. And I think that it's really easy, and I understand. So this is not to diminish like anybody's experience with their culture or any traumas that they've experienced because of that culture. But sometimes it's very easy for us to write off everything we grew up with because it's just easy to blame and easy to be like, fuck that, I don't like it, I don't identify with it anymore. But the reality is, and I'm seeing this with myself getting older every single year, the things that I've often discounted are things that I often fall back on as what I actually enjoy. So there's nuance to how we were raised. There's nuances to our cultures, and that's fine. It doesn't need to be this all or nothing mentality. So thank you for pointing that out so beautifully as you did.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love I don't remember who was it that told me this, but it was a long time ago and it was one of my teachers. But she said, you know, life is never black and white. It's multicolor.
Yeah.
And whatever colors you want to have in your life, you choose. So I love it. Like it's not black and white. Most things, I think 99% of the times, it's not black and white.
Okay, I know we're out of time. I got to ask one more because we really got so many good questions. I'm sorry to not get to all of them, which just means you'll have to come back, which I love. So let's end on this one. How do I figure out my kinks when I'm not currently partnered or sexually active?
You know, as humans, our imagination is really powerful. Our imagination is the reason why there's all this art in the world. There's these awesome movies, TV shows, music. And the imagination, I think, is one of the most powerful practices that we can do. So when it comes to figuring out your kinks, there are like kink sheets on the internet. And I can also send you the link for you to have it on your description, but there are kink sheets of like kinky activities in which you can review. But because you're saying you're not having sex and you're not testing it with a partner, I think use your powerful imagination. When you look through the list, like go one thing at a time and really sit down, spend at least like a few minutes to really think and basking into the idea of doing that thing. Now, does it turn you on? Do you have like an immediate visceral reaction, like, oh, wow, hot, or like, ugh, gross, whatever it is? Check it on that list. Like, okay, a yes, a maybe, a no. Right. And also know that our kinks change throughout the lifetime. If you ask me when I was 22, like having someone piss on me, I'd be like, that is the nastiest thing ever. Get away from here. Now I'm like, yeah, you can pee on me. That's pretty hot. So people change all the time. So maybe revisit this list like once a year or once every 2-3 years and see if there is something else that used to be a maybe that's now a yes, a no that now is a maybe, or maybe a yes that's now a no. Yeah. So going through that list and really use your like visualization and really imagine yourself doing it, what kind of reaction it gives you.
Imagination is so special. We had a guest on recently, entirely different topic, more about manifestation and like the power of language. But so many answers come back to our ability to like imagine a greater life for ourselves, explore, like figure out like problem solving with your imagination. Like being imaginative as an adult is so underrated. So I love that we've been talking about this recently, especially in such vastly different contexts.
Yeah. And
so
sexual
important.
imagination is super cool.
Super
sexual
cool.
fantasies.
Yeah.
We all have sexual fantasies because whenever I talk to people at like dinner parties, whenever they know what I do, they always like, oh my God, so like, can you answer these questions? But I always ask them like, so what's one of your sexual fantasies? And whenever someone tells me like, I don't have any, I'm like, I don't believe you.
You're lying.
You're like, you don't have to share it, but I know you have
you don't have to share it. You can be like, oh, I'm not going to talk about it here. That's fine. Totally fine. Your boundaries. But at the same time, if you say you don't have it, it's either you have not yet explored that part of your imagination or you just don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. If you haven't explored, I strongly invite you to explore your sexual fantasies. And if you get a chance, like write it down. It's really crazy sometimes. I'll like write down my sexual fantasies. I'm like, okay, this should be a movie. Should I sell this to like,
oh my God,
I don't know, Guillermo del Toro?
Yeah, exactly. Dr. Tara, you need a sex journal with all of your tools.
Yeah, please.
Do you want, does your brand want to collab? We should collab.
Let's talk about this.
Let's talk about it offline.
Let's talk about this. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You need one.
This was so
amazing.
Fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here, for chatting with us and our community. This was amazing. Please come back because we have so many more questions.
I know. We barely scratched the surface. You're the best.
Come back.
How's it going, y'all? It's Aaron. Don't let your Monday suck. Don't have those Sunday scaries. I'm tired of everybody waking up in the week saying, shit, it's Monday. You know what goes down? TMV releases every week on Mondays. Make sure you rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching YouTube, yes, TMV has a YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and ring that noti bell and never miss a thing. And also, join the TMV Familia by joining the Thoughts May Vary Patreon and by following at Thoughts May Vary Pod on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you for listening. Great. There you go. Thanks, AB. Got y'all.